involves someone in our own backyard, they look the other way. To me, it makes no sense. They're spending billions of dollars helping people all over the world, but then in our own country, the violations just continue. I myself, I'm an immigrant. I came from France back in 1950. And one thing that stuck in my mind back in 1950 is signs that said no pets and no DPs. You know, so I'm used to, you know, the verbal abuse and the prejudice. I'm glad that the black movement has gone and is surviving and is excelling now. And it's time now for the Hispanic movement to do the same thing. We have to organize. We are all one people. We all deserve the same rights that anybody else in this country thinks they have. You know, we have to work together, and we have to make the general public realize the injustice that's being committed.
Thank you.
I just want to introduce a couple more very, very compelling stories, and then I want Deacon Jones to tell about an incident in Painesville. But Everardo, por favor, ven. This is Everardo Alvarez. He was driving home, not sure when. ¿Cuándo te pasó esto? In March. Followed several miles from the nursery where he works, him and his co-workers pulled over. The Ohio Highway Patrol got even with their vehicle that swung behind them and pulled them over. He had a valid driver's license, he had his car insurance, everybody was legal, yet they were continuously grilled about their legal status. They called the Border Patrol from the cell phone and interrogated him and his passengers by phone. Then, after over an hour, they were finally released. Did they give you a ticket?
No.
No ticket. No violations. If that isn't racial profiling, I don't know what is. I just wanted to introduce him. He's too shy to speak, but these are very real stories that are really happening. And by the way, this is the second time. There was another case that I have of 4 legal workers followed on their way to the nursery, pulled over. Another highway patrol vehicle showed up with a dog, even though the owner of the nursery was right there. This was at the entrance to the nursery, and he said, "These are my workers. They're all legal." "Step back, sir. This doesn't involve you." The workers were brought in, incarcerated at the highway patrol cell for a couple of hours, just to make sure they really were legal. And then they were released with no ticket. So, what I tell my friends, because I live here in Ashtabula, and I'm very involved in the Latino community, statewide, locally, nationally. If you're coming to Ashtabula County, or Lake County, Ohio, and you think your license is good enough, no, you better carry your birth certificate, passport, and you still might be detained. It still might be enough, if you have brown skin. Now, if you're a Canadian, or, you know, somebody from Russia, no worries. This is strictly targeting the Latino community. Gracias, Everardo. I have Luisa here. She stuck around. She's got to run to work. Her husband was also stopped in Ashtabula, in Geneva, right? And sat in jail in Pennsylvania for 2 months. And she is a wonderful person. This is a wonderful, intact family. He has been deported. They have 5 children here in Ashtabula. They will not see their father again for a very long time. ¿Qué quieres decir una cosa?
Pues sí, que esta reunión ojalá que sí sirva para algo. Yo ya tengo a mi esposo en México, quizás me vaya, pero que queremos este país, por eso estamos aquí. Amamos a su país, nos gusta la seguridad que hay aquí, por eso estamos aquí.
She says, well, my husband is in Mexico already, but let's hope that this gathering will lead to some changes. We love this country. We're not doing anything wrong. We want to stay. Juana, ¿dónde están las dos Juanas? No las veo. No tienen que hablar, pero por favor pasa adelante con los niños. Si quieren decir 2 o 3 palabras. Ay, gracias.
Que pararon en Chester Street o en la semana pasada. Okay.
This is Juana. Her husband was stopped on Chester Street in Painesville.
No sabes por qué lo pararon.
She doesn't know why he was stopped, but he has an immigration hold on him right now and will likely be deported. She lives in Painesville. ¿Cuántos hijos tienes? She has 3 children and she's also expecting their 4th child. ¿Cómo te sientes? ¿Cómo has sobrevivido sin tener tu marido presente? ¿Y cómo se sienten tus hijos sin su papá?
Es difícil porque pues es buen papá, pues, es gente que viene a trabajar por su familia y no es justo que por no tener una licencia los tengan ahí detenidos y no sabemos cuánto tiempo. Es lo peor de todo, que los tienen ahí y no tienen a alguien que les esté ayudando ahí adentro.
Well, he's a good father. He loves his children very much. He's only here to work. It's not fair that they keep him in jail. The worst part is not knowing how long he's going to be detained. It's very difficult. So Juana's husband was stopped in Mentor, Ohio, also reported to the Border Patrol when his work vehicle broke down. Instead of offering to lend him a hand, they quite grilled him about his immigration status. That's the kind of law enforcement that we have nowadays. He's now been sitting in jail since October 3rd, and as you can see, they have a young baby, and
¿Qué quieres decir con respecto a lo que está hablando?
she can't talk. And I hear this from many of the women that they have a knot in their throat. When we recently took a group to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago for a national rally, we brought 61 families from Lake and Ashtabula County on a bus. I can't tell you how scared we were. Even I was scared in Ashtabula as I was driving to pick up the families to meet the bus. I said, what if we get pulled over? What am I going to do? It was a white knuckle drive in Ashtabula for me. On the bus, nobody spoke. You know, who was on that bus? I know you were, Joe. Everybody was terrified. When we finally got to D.C. and everybody marched and they felt so free, it was the most beautiful thing. And coming home, people were singing on the bus and it was a wonderful experience. But I don't know if you can understand the terror of living in Northeast Ohio and being a Latino. Now, what is this impacting? How is this impacting everybody else who's not Latino? I had a woman tell me that her house was just robbed in Ashtabula, jewelry, everything stolen, and nope, she is not calling the police. They will not call the police. Now, Deacon Jones, can you come up and tell me the story that you just heard too? Deacon Jones of St. John's Baptist Church has a food pantry in Painesville that serves a lot of Latinos, and he had a very similar incident. So what we have now are criminals and people who are targeting the Latino community because they know that nobody's going to call the police. The police are providing cover for the criminals. They say, hey, go for it. If you do something and they come to us, we'll throw them in jail. They won't even be able to testify.
I'm Albert Jones from St. John's Baptist Church in Painesville, Ohio. In our community, First State, we have a group that's made up of Latinos, white, and African Americans. The name of that group is Bridge the Gap. We've been working now for about a year and a half in order to bridge the gap between the communities because we realize that it's not about white, brown, or black. It's about what's right. Absolutely, just about what's right. Because just a few years ago, when it was fashionable for this country to have cheap labor, it was fashionable to encourage Latinos to come here. Absolutely, totally. We got cheap labor. Now all of a sudden we don't need cheap labor no more as a country.